Thank you, dear heart, and welcome everybody. Once again, we get to play with these amazing Aramaic ideas, especially the core idea that is so ridiculously misunderstood in our culture as to be virtually useless the way that the word is used and taught today. Well, we're looking to reverse that. We're looking to invite people to stop this game of letting other people off the hook because their own physiology is producing pain and trauma, and start to look into why their own physiology is producing pain, trauma, negative results in their lives, negative events. Basically, the whole core of my book, why is this happening to me again? And so it's a delight to get to continue the conversation. I really appreciated what unfolded in yesterday's show, and rock and roll. Thank you, everybody, for your participation. And I know you've got a question that we didn't quite get to yesterday, sweetie, so let's go for it.
All right. So this was actually an email that came through from the app, and she says, when you say not just let someone off the hook for what they've done or to forgive what they've done, does it mean I can't file a claim for justice to stop multiple rapes from the rapist? Or can I do both? Can I forgive and ask for justice to stop him? Many thanks. And I did get a follow-up email from the same woman, and it sounds like it is a repeat in her life, that it wasn't just a one-time event, and that it has now shown up in her daughter's life. And so perhaps you can address what, I think she's a little confused about what the forgiveness process is, so maybe give a fuller detail on that, and then talk about how it keeps repeating. Why is this happening to me again?
Well, as I said yesterday, and really the whole show yesterday is a prelude to this question, because one of the greatest, let's lay a foundation. One of the greatest atrocities done to us as human beings down through the ages, and you've heard me say this over and over, is that we've had hidden from us the fact that we are by nature creators. When traumas happen, especially repeatedly, the world has developed this conversation about, well, you better be careful about blaming the victim. Well, we're here to recognize creatorship, and that nothing comes to you that is separate from you. You know, there's some interesting research that was done in prisons, and what they did was reverse lineup. They'd bring just Joe Blow, people off the street, and they'd have them in a lineup, and then they'd have the prisoners on the other side of the double, mirror, and they'd have the prisoners pick out who they'd attack. Now, I don't remember what the number was, but some ridiculous percentage each time they did that test, the criminals picked the same person. There'd be 10 people in the lineup, and 80% of the criminals would pick number 3. Why is that? What goes on here? Recognize that we're creators. The way we create is through energy. I mentioned yesterday the lesson that Job gave us was, that which I feared most has come upon me. All I need to do is acquire an energy, add fear to it, and guess what? Literal, energetic, measurable wave I'm sending out to the world. I'm sending out, amplified by fear, the very vibration of what it is that I don't want to have happen. So the objective of forgiveness is to let you off the hook, not them off the hook. The objective of forgiveness is to go inside yourself and find the energetic pattern with which you draw that which you fear and that you're recognizing has passed on to the next generation. And that's what happens. When they talk about, first of all, in Aramaic, the word sin is an archery term. It means off the mark. If you fire at the target on the archery range and you miss the bullseye, the scorekeeper yells sin, you're off the mark. If I hold an energy that's off the mark, it might be a generational pattern where, in this case of rape, a terrible event happened to my great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother. And it's happened repeatedly down through the generations. Why? Because that terribly painful, traumatic, energetic pattern has not yet been forgiven, has not been removed. So forgiveness is about recognizing I'm a creator. There's a part of me that has to energetically be involved in something for it to be drawn to me. Does that mean it's my fault? Absolutely not. We're not suggesting that in any way, shape, or form. We're just saying that as a creator, you're involved in your life. And all it takes is, say, something, again, from 10 generations ago, residing in our genes, to draw it into the family system again and again and again. So the Greeks came along with the idea of pardoning and said, well, if somebody does something terrible to you, you just let them off the hook for your pain, and then everything will be okay. And that's just an absolute ridiculous lie and a fraud. Everything isn't okay when you let somebody else off the hook, because the energy pattern and the trauma still remains inside. What Yeshua would tell you is, take care of the heart, for out of it are the issues in life. That word heart would be the unconscious and would include literally our whole genetic history, our whole emotional history, our whole mental history is included in that word heart, which in our modern updated language would be the unconscious. So when Yeshua offered forgiveness, he was saying, go inside your own unconscious, go inside your own energy field and remove those energetic patterns. That's forgiveness. Absolutely nothing to do with letting them off the hook. However, it does let you off the hook. Because once you get rid of the energetic pattern that would draw any form of abuse to you, the same abuser walks by your house and has no inclination, doesn't even turn their head toward your front door that happens to be standing open. Cancel the thought. But if you carry that vibration of fear about that sort of assault, and someone with the potential, the predisposition to that form of assault is walking down your street and the front door is open, they turn their heads and energetically, they're unconscious. They don't know what's drawing them to it, but they're going to be drawn like the moth to the flame. So again, be very aware that this could be interpreted as blaming the victim. That's not what we're saying. We're saying that energetically, I have to be involved in my own life. And so once I recognize that I'm involved in my own life, yesterday Jeannie shared that lesson in my defenselessness. Now, we could have someone that has an atrocity that happened to them, such as this, and they could build a fortress around their house. They could build a dome over the house to protect them. They could have an army standing guard. Wouldn't matter. They will find a way, energetically, to draw someone, one of the soldiers in the army guarding them, or the door happens to be left open. Energetically, the result is going to be produced until the cause is forgiven. You listen to that story, and it fits very, very perfectly here in the Old Testament about this group of very bright people who were wandering in the desert, supposedly for 40 years. They were lost in a 35 square mile area for 40 years. Now, when you think about that logically, here's a group of people who have written quite knowledgeably about astronomy. Do you think they were actually lost in a 35 square mile hot sandy place for 40 years? Is that what that was really about? No. What they were talking about, that word desert would be another code word for the unconscious. And most people wander unconsciously in the desert in that unconscious state for the first 40 or so years of their lives before they start to go, gee, you know, I've been through this 87 different times with 42 different people. I'm the only one that was there every time. I'm the common link. Maybe I'm involved. What do I need to do to find the part of me that's involved in this atrocity and remove it from my structure so it is no longer present in me, so that I and my family system are free of it? It's called forgiveness. Now, you remember, if you read that story about that group that was lost in the desert, supposedly, this hot, sandy place for 40 years, you remember what had to happen to get out of the desert? They said the old generation has to die off. The root of the word generation is genari. It means cause. All of the energetic patterned causes held within the unconscious have to be faced and removed, forgiven, in order to change the dynamic in your life. And when you change that dynamic, you open the energy window for everybody else in the family system to also be freed of it. You removing that does not necessarily remove it from your children, but what it does do is make it easier for your children, your parents, their parents, or the ancestor that this happened to originally to be freed of that energy. You know, I like to use an example. Let's imagine we've got a sliding glass door that goes out onto the deck, and the door has been squeaking and stuck, and it almost takes a Superman to open it. So any family member that goes to try to open that door is going to struggle and strain, and oh, it's so difficult to do. And one day, you decide to acquire the tools, unlatch the door, you get it to move open enough to remove it. You put new wheels on. You clean all the gunk out of the tracks, top and bottom. You lubricate the tracks, top and bottom. You put the door back in, and with your pinky finger, you can slide it. Now, everybody that wants to open that door can do it easily because you did the work to open the door. My offering is that's an exact analogy of what happens when one person in the family system opens the energy window for the internal hidden dynamics to be changed. Again, remembering that story, 40 years in the desert, what was the alternative to the desert? The alternative they called the promised land. The promised land doesn't mean some beautiful paradisical kind of place. The promised land means you get to consciously engage in an energetic pattern as a creator. There's nothing in you that goes against that to be resonated by that, and you simply create the result. However, and of course, let's say, you know, the result in this case would be, I want to create wonderful relationship. Well, if there's nothing other than wonderful relationship in me, and I affirm wonderful relationship, then I'm going to simply create wonderful relationship. However, if in my file, so to speak, in my mind on relationships, there's pain, trauma, and abuse, then when I affirm that I'm going to have wonderful relationships, what resonates in me is pain, trauma, and abuse, and I go, you know, I've been affirming, I've done 100 affirmations on wanting wonderful relationships, and here I am 10 years later, I'm in the same old abusive relationship. How does this happen? Why is this happening to me again? We suggest do not do affirmations. I know that goes against a lot of people's belief systems, but when you understand how the unconscious mind can interfere with your affirmation, if I hold in me a place that says, I always get abused in relationship, until I go into my heart, my unconscious, and clean out that mind energy of abuse, I'm going to create abusive relationships. The more I affirm I have wonderful relationships, the more I resonate what's in me about destructive relationships. And the more destructive my relationships will tend to become. You know, I use an example. And this one's kind of getting a little outdated because it goes back a few years, but most people will recognize it. How many in our audience can tell me what the name of the Lone Ranger's horse was? I do this oftentimes if I've got a large group of people. I'll say, what's the Lone Ranger's horse's name? Guess what answers I get? I get Tonto, I get Trigger, and I get the horse's name, Silver, to the fray. Well, there's a thing in the mind called the file folder effect. And the file folder effect simply says that when two files fire together, they wire together. Example, unless you've heard me do this one before, you've probably never associated these two things. If I say to you, don't think about a purple alligator, what happens? Well, you can't not think about a purple alligator because the mind works by resonance. When I say purple alligator, the color purple resonates in you, and the concept of an alligator resonates in you. Now that those two things have fired together, they are wired together. If I started out tomorrow's radio show and said, don't think about a purple, what would everybody who was listening today that's listening tomorrow say? No, alligator. Now, I could come back, let's say 25 years from now, you're tuned into the show and you're on the show today, and I say, remember back in October of 2023, I made a statement about what fires together, wires together in the mind? Don't think about a purple. What would happen in those people's minds? Probably most of them would not remember alligator after 25 years, but it would still resonate because of that file folder effect, the concept purple, and that energetic pattern would shade the perceptual construct of the mind, even though the exact event doesn't come to awareness. And that's how childhood events interrupt and interfere with our creative process. That's how generational patterns, you listen again to where they understood the physics of how human beings create, and they said, look to the lives of the fathers. Of course, we didn't include mothers in that, for ours are but a shadow of theirs upon the earth. The sins of the fathers will be passed, yea, unto 3 and 4 generations of those who are separated from love. Now remember, the word sin simply means, it's simply an archery term that means off the mark. If you hold an energy, I always get abused, and that energy came from, maybe you've never been abused, but that energy came from 4 generations ago. Whenever the abuser, the person who resonates with that exact form of abuse that you hold as a genetic pattern shows up, sins of the father, guess what's going to come out of them? Guess what they're going to do? Guess what the experience is going to be? So what we're saying is, pardon someone if you choose. Let somebody off the hook if you wish to. But never forgive anyone, including yourself, for anything. And forgive continuously. Now, because most people hold the false idea of forgiveness, they think that statement's in conflict. Never forgive anyone, including yourself, for anything, but forgive continuously. Well, Michael, how does that make sense? So what we're saying is, let go of the Greek fraud of forgiveness. Never let anyone off the hook. But if you're experiencing any form of trauma or turmoil or block or problem in your life, then forgive as to that block continuously until you are finished with whatever that is. So hopefully that makes sense of it. So distinguishing between pardoning and forgiveness is a key concept here. Distinguishing between responsibility and blame is a key concept here. Most people, when they hear the word responsibility, say, well, you're telling me I'm guilty, I'm at fault, I'm to blame for this? No, I didn't say anything about guilt, fault, or blame. What I said is you're responsible. Well, but that means I'm to blame, right? No. There's nothing about fault or blame in the word responsible. It simply means there's a part of me that's playing, that's involved here. Am I to blame for that? No. My energetic pattern simply happens to match, and when I meet someone with a matching bag of garbage, there's going to be a resonance, an attraction between us. If I forgive the energy behind that attraction with an abuser, then I free myself from needing to attract another abuser. If in the past I've had an abuser come and abuse me, please do your work, get your mind back to love, pick up the phone, call the police, and have them put in jail, if that's appropriate, if that's what your guidance says to do. If it was a crime that was committed, then for the protection of yourself and others in the future, for the safety, I should say, of yourself and others in the future, call the police, go to court and testify, hold them accountable. But what you want to be sure to do is to do your work so that you hold them accountable out of your human awareness and your human life, out of the state of active present love. Because if you try to hold someone what you call accountable out of hostility or fear, back into the blame game. So forgive no one. Let no one off the hook. Well, I shouldn't say absolutely. I mean, if you choose to do that, it's okay. But that's not a requirement for healing. So it's never about letting anybody off the hook when you talk about forgiveness. And so then I say forgive continuously, because if there's any form of hostility or fear in you, that hostility or fear is going to produce and draw and resonate into your space a result. And so forgive continuously until that energetic pattern that's at cause for your abuse is removed. Can only do that if you're responsible for it. Again, doesn't mean you're to blame for it. Just means, there's a part of me involved here. I'm ready to deal with it. I'm ready to forgive it. I'm ready to approach it. And one of the challenges with that is that oftentimes these things that need to be forgiven hold giant, just unfathomable amounts of trauma and pain. And this is my take on one of the reasons why forgiveness isn't very popular. Because people don't want to feel, don't want to experience, don't want to deal with those underlying energetic patterns. Once you begin to do your work, you realize that you can hold to a space of active present love and use the tools that allow those things to surface, and by the very act of them surfacing, and you being aware that you breathe and hold love present, you are freed of them. You dissolve, you transmute those energies, so you're finished with them. So forgive continuously. Now, Ms. Jeannie, yesterday you introduced the whole concept of defenselessness because you're writing your book and because of some of this very same issue of sexual abuse. So do you have anything to add to that conversation, sweetie?
Well, it was just a really powerful reading from the Course on how like defense and anger and attack just draws more defense and anger and attack, and it's just a cycle that you can't get out of, and that the only way to get beyond that is to just trust Spirit, trust God, and to stay in defenselessness. Deceive yourself no longer.
Perfect. Go ahead, excuse me.
Deceive yourself no longer that you are helpless in the face of what is done to you. Acknowledge that you have been mistaken, and all effects of your mistakes will disappear. That's another one. That's from Responsibility for Sight. I am responsible for what I see.
I create the feelings I experience, and I decide upon the goal I would achieve. And everything that seemed to happen to me, I ask for and receive as I have asked. Deceive yourself no longer. Yeah, it's a very powerful passage from the Course. And my thought is that what you read yesterday, I mean, it's got some ideas that are so dramatically different than the way most people think, that hearing it 2 days in a row would probably be good. So maybe you'd share that with us again.
bring it back up. And it's and I didn't read all of it. It's pretty long, but the first part of it is, you feel threatened by this changing world, its twists of fortune and its bitter jests, its brief relationships and all the gifts it merely lends to take away again. Attend this lesson well. The world provides no safety. It is rooted in attack, and all of its gifts, quote unquote, of seeming safety are illusionary deceptions. It attacks and then attacks again. No peace of mind is possible where danger threatens thus. The world gives rise but to defensiveness. For threat brings anger. Anger makes attack seem reasonable, honestly provoked, and righteous in the name of offensiveness, a double threat. For it attests to weakness and sets up a system of defense that cannot work. Now are the weak still further undermined, for there is treachery without and still a greater treachery within. The mind is now confused and knows not where to turn to find escape from its imaginings. It is as if a circle held it fast, wherein another circle bound it, and another one in that, until escape no longer can be hoped for nor obtained. Attack, defense, defense, attack becomes the circles of the hours and the days that bind the mind in heavy bands of steel, with iron overlaid, returning but to start again. There seems to be no break nor ending in the ever-tightening grip of the imprisonment upon the mind. And then I rolled down towards the end of it. Today our theme is our defenselessness. We clothe ourselves in it as we prepare to meet the day. We rise up strong in Christ and let our weakness disappear as we remember that His strength abides in us. We will remind ourselves that He remains beside us through the day and never leaves our weakness unsupported by His strength. We call upon His strength each time we feel the threat of our defenses undermine our certainty of purpose. We will pause a moment as He tells us, I am here. Your practicing will now begin to take the earnestness of love to help you keep your mind from wandering from its intent. Be not afraid nor timid. There can be no doubt that you will reach your final goal. The ministers of God can never fail because the love and strength and peace that shine from them to all of their brothers come from Him. These are His gifts to you. Defenselessness is all you need to give Him in return. You lay aside but what was never real to look on Christ and see His sinlessness.
Well, that says a mouthful and a half.
Yinka's in the chat room. She said, literally, she had just been given something to read by Napoleon Hill, and it's on the Mind folder effect. Mind file folder effect.
Right. Perfect. So let me read a little bit more from that lesson, Responsibility for Sight, from Course in Miracles. I am responsible for what I see. I choose the feelings I experience, and I decide upon the goal I would achieve. And everything that seems to happen to me, I ask for and receive as I have asked. Deceive yourself no longer that you are helpless in the face of what is done to you. Acknowledge that you have been mistaken, and all effects of your mistakes will disappear. It is impossible that you, the son or daughter of the Creator, be merely driven by events outside of you. It is impossible that happenings that come to you were not your choice. Your power of decision is the determiner of every situation in which you seem to find yourself by chance or accident. No chance or accident is possible within the universe as it was created, outside of which is nothing. Suffer, and you decided that error was your goal. So, once again, this simply acknowledges that we live in a world of energy, We live in a world of resonance. When it says nothing can come to you without your deciding to bring it to you. An interesting piece of the puzzle to bring together here, an interesting point, to recognize that decision is an automatic thing in the mind. When I say don't think about the color of your car, and then I say, well, what are you thinking about? And you say the color of my car. Well, are you sure you're thinking, or is that just a pure resonance process? So the mind, when it holds any form of attack or defense from the past, whenever that's resonated into activity, whenever somebody shows up that has the matching bag of garbage, the mind makes a decision. It's an automatic resonance process. It has nothing whatsoever to do with volition. It's just an automatic resonance process. If I hold a particular form of defense in me, and somebody shows up with that particular form of defense, then there's going to be a resonance between those two energies, and there's going to tend to be an outpouring of both that attack and that defense. However, if I choose to, now I'm bringing in another word, choice, much different than decision. When I bring in a choice from being, from the state of love, from the truth of who I am, I now recognize my mind has made a decision to either attack, defend me from attack, and now I'm going to make a choice to forgive that energy of attack and defense. And now that I no longer hold it, if the person who holds the matching bag of garbage shows up, they're going to look at me and say hi and turn away and go in the other direction and find somebody else with the matching bag of garbage to play that out with. And I'm saying this literally. This is a turnaround. I'm trying to, what I'm seeing, what I'm perceiving. I'm trying to put it into words, but it's like literally when a person changes an energetic pattern that has brought them to an experience over and over and over and over and over and over again, when that energetic pattern is removed, forgiven, literally the whole universe rotates around it, turns on that, possibility is gone. Now, I say that from experience, my own personal experience. I was brought up in a household where if you were going to do spiritual work, you were going to live in poverty. That's just the way it is. That's what's supposed to happen. One of the lies of churchianity. Not true. However, when I chose to move from the business world, where when I left I had a mark through on one of my side of my driveway and an El Dorado on the other. I had a penthouse apartment in one city and homes in two other cities and about 60 employees, business world. And I started to do this work. There was a point where I just woke up one morning and it was time to walk away from all of that, to go back to school and to teach this work full time. And that's what I did. And I ended up in poverty. I literally, while I was going to school, traded managing a small apartment house for a room in that house so I had a place to live while I was going to school. I rode a bicycle back and forth to work. I'd gotten rid of the El Dorado and the Mark III. That was not the life I was living when I went back to school. And the first 7 years of doing this work, there were times when I didn't know how I was going to feed my kids regularly. That was a regular occurrence. And I can tell you the minute at which the world turned around on that issue with me. I had actually rented a house in North Georgia to take time to write a book. And 10 days before Christmas, the pipes froze and we couldn't live in the house. The owner said, well, I'm going to see how long it's going to take to fix it, but you can't live there. I had a friend, Sam Levy. If anybody that's on the show remembers Sam, bless his heart, he's left his body now. He lived in North Palm Beach. And for a couple of years, he'd been saying, you need to come down here. You need to come and speak down here. You need to teach down here. This is before I started to really travel a lot. I lived in Atlanta. I had a center in Atlanta. I had a naturopathic practice in Atlanta. And so while the pipes were being fixed, I'd moved to North Georgia. While the pipes were being fixed, I took my family. We went down to North Palm Beach. This fellow had extra space in his apartment right near the beach. Thank goodness. It was pretty cool. And he knew the minister at Unity of Lake Worth. He asked the minister to host one of my workshops, which we did, and it started to grow a little bit down there. And there was a point where I had been there for several months, had actually gotten some energy moving around the forgiveness work, around the work. I was doing a lot of work with A Course in Miracles. I actually ended up teaching A Course in Miracles for 7 years at Unity in Fort Lauderdale and at Unity in Delray. It's actually about 5 years in Delray. But it all started in Lake Worth. And he went to the minister. He said, what, this guy who's doing this course, would you let him do it here at Unity? And the minister at Unity there said, yeah, you can use the facility to do it. You can present the Sunday service. But, things don't really happen here and people don't show up for workshops. Well, we set up a workshop, a series, and we ended up with the minister was just blown away. We ended up with about 100 people, and there was actually some abundance created out of it. It was pretty. So a couple of months went by. The house was ready in Atlanta, or in North Georgia, and I had a workshop set up in Atlanta that I was supposed to teach. So I went to Sam and said, it's time for us to, head back to Atlanta. And he's like, no, you just got something started here. You can't leave. And it's like, well, yeah, I've got a commitment in Atlanta, and, the house is ready in North Georgia. And I can remember it was a Wednesday night. It was going to be the last Course in Miracles lesson that I taught in Fort Lauderdale. I had about $102 in my pocket, 102 and some change in my pocket. I'm going to do this workshop, and whatever donations come from that, and it usually averaged, $50, $60, $70. I would have that, and then I was going to get in my car the next day, load 2 kids, and drive back to North Georgia, stock the fridge, and go back to writing. I'm driving down I-95. I get to Hills. I can tell you almost to the inch where I was when this whole shift happened around me. I'm driving down I-95. I'm at Hillsborough Boulevard, and I'm just mulling over with some fear. How am I going to get my kids back? How are we going to pay for the gas? How am I going to get back to North Georgia and do this workshop I'm supposed to do? And I was guided, at that point I'd been practicing listening, and I was guided to get off the highway and do something rather shocking. I was guided to get off of I-95, find a bank, and take $100 of the $102 in my pocket and get a $100 bill for it and give it away at the workshop. To which my mind said, "Are you nuts?" And I got off the highway and got a $100 bill, and I created an exercise where I asked people, if they believed in the principle of giving, and you get back 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times, and everybody agreed they wanted 1,000 times what they gave away back. So okay, so take out the $1,000 or $10,000 you're ready to give away, whatever you got that you're ready to give away. It's like, well, wait a minute, let's not go that far. So, well, take out whatever you're willing to give away. Write a check to cash, or put cash in your hand. Fold it up small enough so you can hold it in a closed fist, and get up and walk around the room. And when I give you the signal, I want you to reach your hand out to whoever's in front of you and receive what they have in their hand and give them what's in your hand. And so we did that exercise, and we had people circulate and do 5 or 6 exchanges, and then everybody, ended up with whatever they ended up with. There was myself and one other person who gave away a $100 bill, and I remember one of the people who gave away the $100 bill, or pardon me, that received one of those $100 bills, was like, well, okay, now whose is this? I need to give it back. It's like, no, that's what you received from the exercise. Well, no, I can't keep it. And I mean, it was so hard for them to receive that $100. But it's like, no, that's what the exercise is. You receive what you receive, and this is looking at what you choose to give. I got a $20 bill for my 100. Drove back up after the workshop to North Palm Beach. Sam loaned me some cash to get in the car and get the kids loaded up and get back to North Georgia, stock the fridge. And we get the car all packed and get in the car. And for the first time in about 60,000 miles, when I turned the key, the car would do absolutely nothing. There wasn't even a click like you get from a dead battery. Nothing. Totally, completely dead. And I took that as a signal that I wasn't going back to North Georgia. I unloaded the car, told both, by now we're doing Unity in Lake Worth, we're doing Unity in Delray, and we're doing Unity in Fort Lauderdale. Told all 3 that I was staying and ready to carry on with the work that I've been doing with them. Literally, the next day, this was a Sunday, pardon me, no, it was a Wednesday. It was a Wednesday evening in Fort Lauderdale. The next day, the phone started to ring, and I had private work to do that was, I don't remember exactly now, 3 or 4 times provided income, 3 to 4 times what I had earned in the 7 years prior to beginning to do this work full time. And it's never dropped below that since. So I have that, it's like my mind still boggles at how is that possible, but when I really tap into it, I can get a sense of what I can describe as, it's like, the whole energy pattern of the world that matched with my poverty thinking because I was doing spiritual work. When I forgave as to that poverty thinking, when I was able to let go of that and step into, okay, I've only got $100, but I'm going to give it away. The whole energy of how the universe supported me financially changed. And I've watched people with every kind of issue you can imagine over the years, including things like being sexually abused, who when they go in and find the piece of themselves that energetically participates, and oftentimes it is a generational pattern, when they access that and forgive as to that pattern, they are freed of that form of abuse. So if you forgive as to the sexual abuser, does that mean the sexual abuser is not held accountable? No. Does that mean you've let the sexual abuser off the hook? Absolutely not. Does that mean you've let yourself off the hook and that the universe is going to shift everything it does in concert with you around that issue, that's exactly what it means. So that would be my answer to your question. And I would suggest that you listen to yesterday's show because it really creates a foundation. Jeannie had shared the letter before we started, so I had that in the back of my mind. And then the show kind of went off in a different direction, but it was the same direction. And this just takes it to the next level. So it is impossible that you, the son or daughter of God, be merely driven by events outside of yourself. It is impossible that happenings come to you or not your choice. Your power of decision is the determiner of every situation in which you seem to find yourself by chance or accident, and no chance nor accident is possible within the universe as created, outside of which is nothing. So whatever the automatic decision system kicks up in your mind, based in any form of hostility or fear, apply forgiveness as to that hostility or fear and free yourself from the universe responding to you out of that. And everything changes. Any other thoughts to add for you, sweetie? By the way, if you want to take your work to the next level now, I'd suggest you go to our YouTube channel on this topic and do two videos that are there. So if you go to YouTube, you can do that by going to our website, whyagain.org, and hitting the YouTube button on the social media links. And then when you hit the YouTube button, type in, what is the world? ACIM, what is the world? It's about a 30-minute video there that just takes this to another place, another level, another perspective on this topic. And there's also, and it's just been recently added, a free Why Is This Happening to Me Again workshop. It used to be that you could only, you could attend that workshop free when we traveled for decades, but in terms of getting a DVD or a CD of it, it was something that was always a product on our website. Well, it's now available free. The latest one we did one back, I think it was last June. And so that 3-hour workshop's free. So I'd suggest doing those two. It will walk you through the whole forgiveness process. And then if more questions come up, which they probably will, then please ask the questions and we're here to support. So, excuse me, sweetie, go ahead.
And I put the links to the YouTube channel and also to the free 3-hour Why in the notes for today as well. The thing that came to my mind has now left.
Okay, I've been there, done that. The resident.
I give the example a lot of times of playing tug of war. I don't know if, when y'all grew up as kids or whatever, you would hold one end of the rope and somebody else held the other end of the rope and you tried to pull each other across a line or whatever. Well, it's like playing that. If you hold fear, there's somebody holding the other end of the rope that maybe holds anger, and you're pulling against each other. You're playing this game. But if you drop your end of the rope, it changes their game, whether they want it to or not. And so that's an example I give sometimes.
Exactly. And the workshop, Healing Through Relationships, is also powerful in this regard, because when we hold an unresolved trauma, the job of relationship is to resonate that for us. We either go into that willingly, let it open, and apply forgiveness because we know how to use that tool, and we've got the step-by-step worksheet process. You either do that, or you will tend to be attracted to someone that has a matching bag of garbage. And sadly, most of the world calls relationships based in matching bags of garbage love relationships. And the people who are resonated toward each other, as Jeannie said, somebody's got the fear, the matching bag of garbage is the anger. And those two, when they come together, they'll start out calling that a marriage made in heaven. It'll be wonderful. But you'll notice there's a saying in the culture about relationship. The honeymoon is over. What does that mean? That means that one or both people in the relationship can no longer keep their bag of garbage hidden, and the bag of garbage that they've been hiding from themselves, they now use to build their brain's image of their partner. Now, all of a sudden, the object, what they thought was the object of their love, now becomes the hated enemy. The honeymoon is over. Now that relationship where it's possible for the honeymoon to be over is the perfect marriage made in heaven. What do you mean by that, Michael? I mean that's the perfect situation in which, if you stop projecting the pain content of your own mind into your brain's image of your partner, which is what starts to happen when they say the honeymoon is over, and you learn to apply forgiveness, which collapses that false image in your mind where you put your bag of garbage into your brain's image of them. When you learn to collapse that and you come into direct contact with your own bag of garbage, and you come into direct contact out of a space of active present love, then you begin the dissolution of your part of the matching bag of garbage. That's what forgiveness is. That's what the reality management worksheet process is. If you don't have the app, jump on your phone, go into the App Store, and type in the words Heartland, Heartland, Aramaic, Aramaic, forgiveness. You'll see in the list a red heart, red glowing heart, and that's the Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness app. Download it, and there you have the worksheet. There are two different versions of the worksheet. Here's how. Here is the mechanical way you go through the forgiveness process. And there's also there on our YouTube channel another useful video. It's actually a video of or a PowerPoint presentation. We actually have a gentleman who was a corporate trainer who was an expert at doing PowerPoints, and he did teacher training. And after the teacher training, he said, Michael, I'd love to do PowerPoints, and I'd like to create a video that explains what you understand about how this forgiveness process works. So Bill Costantino, we appreciate you. The fact you jumped on board and created that, we actually spent about a year going back and forth developing that PowerPoint presentation so that we had the specific, here's how forgiveness works. And in its simplest form, if we don't have a hand up, Jeannie, do we? So in its simplest form, here's what it took me 35 years to learn about forgiveness. Perception, the world we think we see with our eyes, is a construct of the mind. Our mind is showing us the pictures. The pictures the mind is showing us are not coming from the eye. They're actually painted on the inside of the eyeball, so to speak. We're seeing a construct of our mind. If pain comes into that construct, and you'll notice that, unless you're a generally miserable person, you're pretty happy with everybody when they're doing everything you want them to do. When people are fulfilling all the goals, even the nasty people are relatively decent when everybody's fulfilling the goals they have for them. But by God, watch it when you stop fulfilling their goals, the nasty ones. Big trouble. Just look at the political game right now. Look at all the wonderful people that were hired in the political realm by a certain person out there. And now notice as each one turns in another direction, how the rage is unfolded once that person stops fulfilling the goal they have for them. And so let that be a clue that your goals are a part of the forgiveness process. They're actually the key and the core to the forgiveness process. In the Aramaic language, the word forgive, the word that's been translated as forgive, is shabag or shabak, and what it really translates is cancel. So what does forgiveness actually look like? If my mind is generating one of those, why is this happening to me again, perceptual constructs, and I'm in disturbance and upset. I observe myself and determine who the object of attention is that is not fulfilling my goal. Oh, it's Bill over there. He didn't pay me the money he owed me. So what's the goal I hold for Bill? I want him to pay me. I want him to treat me fairly. I want him to be honest. I want him to keep his word. Now, each of those would be different possible worksheets around that situation. When you identify the goal in any specific situation that is the actual goal that you hold, gave 4 examples of what the goals might be. Somebody could do one of those goals and get no results whatsoever because that's not the goal that's driving their perception. You have to develop the skill of looking at and identifying the exact goal that you hold in a situation. And the easiest way to do that is just, well, if you were talking to a stranger, just, yeah, well, Bill owed me this money and didn't pay me. And what I would really like is, for Bill to just call me and say, gee, I apologize for blowing it on paying you. Here's your money. Oh, so my goal was for him to give me the money. There's the goal. And then what you do is you cancel that goal. What happens when you cancel that goal, and this is what the Bill Costantino PowerPoint, what he brought forward, is what happens when you cancel that goal is your perception collapses into its source, into the root in your mind, which is stored somewhere in your physiology. When that collapses, now you have a space to access the unconscious hidden part that holds the pain. This is the part that many people resist. So what we're inviting Ruka to do, what we're inviting this super processor that exists inside of us to do, in Aramaic, what was called the Holy Spirit is Ruka de Kudsha, a feminine elemental force in us that undoes the effects of errors and teaches us the truth. So when I cancel a goal, my perception collapses in on itself. I get to access the underlying maybe 10-generational trauma. I ask that power to help me to process it, and I forgive, I remove, I transmute that trauma energy that keeps creating that result in my life. Now, no longer holding that inside of me, it no longer reflects outside of me. And the matching bag of garbage in relationship has served its purpose, and I've learned to heal myself through my relationships. So in essence, that's the process of forgiveness. I'm delighted you've been with us today. Please create the best year out of your eternal life. It's an awesome gift to give the world. The world really needs it. Forgiveness is here to support you in doing it. Blessing. And so are we. Blessings. Bye-bye.